Da 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 da. I'm late, I'm late, I'm late. There we go. No, we know me. Okay, hello, this is Chiak. I am running late, so let's get this started. I don't have excuse besides the fact that it's getting colder and I just wanted to cuddle in my warm bed. Either way, the strenuous fight of the little men. Now, just a recap for myself, I have 60 points for anything. Well, I can do 60 for agility if I need it. And then I would need 75 for anything else. We have gathered everyone else, or anyone who would be willing to fight with us. You're lying in your hut and staring at its thatched palm roof, losing yourself in thoughts about the upcoming mission and its obvious dangers. Then your thoughts turn to something else, something which you have ignored since you first regained consciousness on this island. How the hell did you even get here? Now you have an idea of where you are. The answer seems utterly impossible. When the Serenity became lost in the fog, it had been heading toward South America, but this island is not in the Caribbean. When you saw the stars on the first night, you got a shock. Okay, question. Is it Caribbean or Caribbean? At first, you could not recognize a single constellation until that is, you knew what to look for. The constellations of the southern hemisphere. You seem to be on a Polynesian island in the middle of the Pacific. It was already astounding that you should have survived, let alone have made such a journey while unconscious. Your thoughts are interrupted by the entrance of Ayata, whose face appears as she pulls a curtain to one side. How are you, Jake? Ayata takes a few slow steps towards you and sits at your side. Let's reassure. Yes, I think I feel the same. Ayata hugs her knees as if reassuring herself. Plan is extreme. It is normal to be afraid. We will avoid conflict as best we can to rescue, not battle after all. I've been a soldier, and soldiers do not ignore their fear. They use it as a weapon when battles come, okay? Okay, so we're trying to reassure her? As if reassuring herself. I like this one better. I don't know. It's... sure. It's just... You're right. Ayata comes forward and sits beside you. You cannot let fear... It's normal to be worried. Are you sure? So you too are worried. Of course I am. I mean, of course. Overconfidence breeds rashness. Overconfidence breeds rashness. Remaining skeptical is critical when making plans. The important thing is to not let your concerns become irrational. Ow. Sorry. We have a mission that is too important to let fear overcome us. Encourage. Let's do this one. We have a mission that is too important to let fear overcome us. Ayata stares deep into your eyes. In them, you see her gratitude for having dispelled her fears. Your eyes linger on her soft, round features. She leans in even closer until your faces are mere inches apart. She closes her eyes and your lips touch. Your hands begin to explore each other. Oh, okay, wow. This time it's like, you get an option. This is happening. Your hands begin to explore each other's bodies as you continue kissing ever more passionately. Soon you are both free of the few clothes you had been wearing, and your kisses too start to wander all over each other's skin. You enter her gently, and your bodies move together as one, as if rocked by the ocean. You become lost in each other, forgetting the passing of time, the mission, the cult, everything. The moment is transmuted by the hot tropical night, by your bodies, and by your complicity into your raw pleasure of carnal abandon. When you separate, you both lie for some time in silence, arms loosely draped over the other. After the horrors of recent months, you consider it impossible that you could again experience such joy. As the Atta falls asleep, your thoughts inevitably return to Helen, and her face is the last image in your mind before you fall asleep. Well, at least at least you weren't thinking about her before that happened. The darkness of the forest is only broken by moonlight when there are gaps in the trees. And when there are, you look up to the heavens full of stars, far more than in the northern hemisphere. Ayata is leading the way with a determined stride. Behind you are the men who you were successful in recruiting for this mission, all following cautiously in total silence. You come to the outcrop which juts out over the cult's campsite and stop to observe the situation. Everything is silent. The camp is asleep. They know the superstitious nature of the islanders. They assume that they do not need fortification or surveillance. You start walking down the narrow path that leads to the beach. The biggest of all the wood and corrugated iron buildings is in the center of the camp. You suspect that is where they are keeping Fuego and the other kidnapped villagers. You quickly reach the camp and have no problem getting close to the central hut. However, when you get there, you see that it is guarded by a heavily built man. He has large muscles and thighs like tree trunks. Every so often, he gets up, circles the building, and then sits back down again. His presence confirms your initial guess that this is where they are keeping the prisoners. Ask a man to help you find the right moment to slip inside. Okay. Sorry, I cannot remember who was specialized, so to speak, in what task. Sorry, I'm just getting rid of all the stuff. Oh, interesting. Okay, so you can, like, fail that. If you don't reassure her, then you don't get some intimate time with Ayata. An agile and smart fisherman, somewhat short-tempered, but could be proved to be a resource in a sortie to the cult camp. A large man who isolates himself from the rest of the village and tends to stick brother. He could be an excellent resource in the event of a physical confrontation with a cult member. I think so. These are our two guys, right? Yeah. So, this guy's stealth. I mean, we don't want to draw attention right away, right? Okay, take out. Manauri pounces at the guard. The guard throws a punch, but Manauri swerves it and ducks behind him. The guard doesn't even know where he is when Manauri comes back at him with a succession of rapid punches to the back of his head. Oh, ow. Together, you drag the guard's unconscious body into a shadow and enter the building. Inside the building is mostly bare. There are some shelves, the walls full of objects and containers. An object there immediately strikes your attention. It looks like a syringe, but not like any syringe you have ever seen. You pick it up and hold it to the light. Yes, it really is a syringe, but it has more than one needle. It has a brass mounting with 4 needles arranged in a shape that you recognize immediately. An injection with this instrument would certainly leave the strange marks that you saw on the backs of the heads of the sick in Zanzibar. You shiver involuntarily at the memory, and you put the syringe in your pocket. You return to looking around. At the far end of the room, there are several camp beds, but they are all empty. The Nayata silently attracts your attention and points to a large trap door in the floor. When you open it, a terrible stench hits your nostril. Straight away, you recognize that sickeningly sweet and nauseous smell. It is the smell of illness and death. You take a lantern from one of the shelves and go through the trap door and down the ladder below it. 92 points. Okay, we're gonna ask him to stand guard since he's the strength guy. The big Polynesian man goes over to stand confidently near the door. You can count on me. You descend a few steps with some difficulty and find yourself in an underground room. It is at least as wide as the building, if not more. The smell is now unbearable. There are several men and women. Shining the light from the lantern towards them, you see that they are the missing villagers. Many of them are covered head to toe with sores typical of the disease you saw in Zanzibar. So that is what the cult is doing, infecting these people, using them as guinea pigs? A small figure steps forward from this horrific scene. Mana lets out a muffled cry. It is Fuego. He is no longer the cheeky, sprightly boy that you have come to know. He has been ravaged by the disease. The chief picks him up and takes him in his arms. Then he looks at you worriedly. You touch the boy's forehead and discover that he is feverish. Your eyes travel immediately to the back of his head, and yes, the mark is there. You look at the others. They are greatly weakened by the disease, and they will not be able to climb the ladder to escape. You promise that you will return for them, and as you ascend the ladder with Fuego, you start thinking about how you might do this. You climb out of the trapdoor, and your companion is waiting there. He had no problems. As you're leaving the building, you hear indistinct noise coming from the camp. It may be that they have heard you, or perhaps it is just time to change turns for the guard. You can't be certain either way, but you cannot take any chances. Still carrying Fuego, you run out of the camp as fast as you can. You're running through the dense vegetation of the jungle, trying to put as much distance as possible between yourself and the camp. You cannot help thinking of the poor, diseased villagers locked underground, and that you were unable to save them. How the dreams of little men drown. When at last you get back to the village, dawn's first light is turning the sea a deep pink color. You're still holding Fuego in your arms, and he is boiling hot. He hasn't said a word since you left the cult's campsite. Ayata looks at him now with growing anxiety. You feel something sharp in your thigh. You put your hands into your pocket and can feel small, sharp shards of glass. The syringe broke during your escape. It is now useless, so you throw it away. Okay, interesting. I wonder if it was possible to... If maybe a fight broke out, we could have, used the syringe on someone. It's the only thing I can think of. Okay. Sorry, how many points? 60 plus 75, 135. Okay. Now I lost my item. All of a sudden, Fuego starts convulsing in your arms. He is having a seizure. You take him inside the hut, which by now you think of as yours, and lay him on the bed. You must try somehow to bring his temperature down and stabilize him, but it will take time, and you know that very soon the cult will already be on their way. Okay, I want to be doubly sure, so either way we're going medicine. After nearly an hour of trying, you finally succeed in bringing down Fuego's temperature. Now he is sleeping calmly, but you cannot be sure whether you have done enough. Amana is at the door of the hut, watching you with serious, impassive eyes. Okay. Interesting. What was the achievement that I apparently failed? You cannot save both children, Fuego and Scott, from the disease. Oh. Wait, Scott was all the way back, wasn't it? Hold on, where is Scott? Smith tried to kill you. Couldn't save Scott's life. Okay, so no matter what. Interesting. Well, saved one kid. Prepare to defend the village. We have no real way to defend ourselves from those men. We have to leave now. You agree with Ayata. She tells you that there is a small island a few hours away by canoe where you could go to hide. She says that she had proposed the idea to the other villagers several times, but nobody would listen. Perhaps the current situation in which you have inadvertently created might convince them. Let's try to escape with all the villagers. There are pirogues on the northern beach. There should be enough for everyone. Without knowing our route, it will take many days for them to find us. There is not much choice. Oh, I don't have enough for speechcraft. Never mind. Listen, everyone. They, the Ratau, are on the way to attack the village. This time, they are not coming to take a person, but to kill us all. The villagers gather around, listening with a mix of incredulity. I don't know how to say this. Incredulity. This doesn't sound right. As I'm saying it, just sounds. I feel like I'm saying it wrong. Incredulity and fear. They do not have magical powers, but they do have weapons and terrible poisons. They are using the kidnapped men to test their poisons, and when they die, they throw their bodies on the fire. We found those who were still alive, imprisoned underground. They will not be alive for very much longer. Ayata confirms what you're saying. You and Ayata are getting ready to escape. You must be prepared to leave as quickly and easily as possible. You are able to organize an orderly evacuation. The villagers are following you silently through the dense jungle. You have gone far, though. Before you see, directly ahead, a company of cultists armed with rifles. The rifles are already loaded and aimed straight at you. Ayata quickly grabs your hand and pulls you into the cover of an area even denser vegetation. The people of the village are not so lucky. You see many of them fall to the ground under the barrage of rifle shots. You not even have time to think of some of the cultists already running through the clouds of gunpowder smoke looking for you. Come on, we have to hide. Through the chaos of gunpowder smoke, screaming, and people running, you see someone approach you slowly. Fuego. He seems to be completely recovered. You snatch his hand and all three of you set off running as fast as you can. Ayata leads, pulling you through the vegetation, holding your hand ever more tightly and not looking back. You change direction several times. So we brought these people with us and they all died anyway? I was like, oh, maybe, okay, this is the good choice. We saved the villagers, right? No. You do not slow for even a moment despite nearly falling several times and having your skin ripped to shreds by thorns and sharp branches. Fuego, despite his recent sickness, fares much better than you. A cliff suddenly opens up before you. Ayata pulls you close to her and guides you through the narrow space between the cliff face and the trees until you come up to a small cave and you crawl inside. You would never have suspected the existence of this large hole in the rock, and it should be almost impossible to find. Again, you feel a strong sense of guilt, like a knot in your stomach. Images of the massacre flash through your mind, and you cannot help but think that it is your fault. You try to wriggle into a new position within the confined space of the cave. You have been here for hours, and every part of your body is aching. The idea was that after a sufficiently long time, the cultists would come to the conclusion that you are dead as the rest of the village. It is a thought that only reinforces your sense of guilt. The sun is disappearing over the horizon of the ocean. Ayata is holding Fuego in her arms. He obviously has less physical difficulty being in this confined space, but he has just recovered from the disease when he had witnessed the deaths of all the people closest to him in the world. Nonetheless, his face is composed, even a little proud. Night has fallen. It's been several hours since you last heard the shouts and other noises of the cultists searching the jungle. It is reasonable to suppose that they have by now abandoned their search, thinking that they have killed everyone or that, if anyone escaped, they are long gone. You leave the cave and move silently towards the beach, where the canoes are. Fortunately, you are still extremely cautious, because near the pirogues there are 2 armed cultists. Hopefully our observation's enough. The men still seem to you to have military bearing. You tell Ayata to be ready. According to your observations of their movements, one of them will soon go off to patrol the other side of the beach, and that will be the moment to move. The 2 cultists have been immobile and silent for some time when one pulls something from his coat pocket. You cannot see what it is until his face is illuminated by the small flames which lights his cigarette. His partner starts walking away, probably to patrol the other side of the beach. This could be your only chance. I don't want to use trick because I'm so afraid that use Fuego to distract him while you knock him out. Oh, I knew it. Agility never just goes for me. You creep slowly and cautiously down the beach, but he hears you before you're close enough. He turns and pulls out his pistol. You rush at him, trying to disarm him, but he gets in 2 hard punches to your stomach, which send you to your knees, doubled up in pain. The cultist looms over you and aims his pistol. Instead of the expected shot, however, there is a thud, and he falls unconscious to the ground. Left in his place there is Ayata, with a large stone in her hands. It seems they were determined to stop anyone from escaping. They have damaged the canoes to make them unusable. Upon further inspections, you find one pirogue which is less damaged than the others and should still float. It won't be able to carry all 3 of you, though. You shake with anger and frustration. You were so close. Go. Fuego knows the way. You angrily refuse. You have been arguing about it for some time when you both suddenly realize that Fuego has gone. Ayata stops herself shouting with her hand. No. You look for him in vain. That brave, stubborn boy made difficult decision for you. You keep looking for him until the sky begins to brighten. Despite your suffering, you can't let his sacrifice be in vain. Ayata, silently weeping, helps you push the pirogue into the water. With a sigh, you sit back and pick up your paddle. With a heavy heart, you drift away from the island. The sun reflects off every single wave. You are surrounded by the immensity of the ocean. You have no conception of how much time has passed, and you are lying dazed in the pirogue. Your skin is taut, cracked, and burnt by the unrelenting sun. Thirst has overtaken you, and you have no strength to paddle whatsoever. The boat is now at the mercy of the wind and currents. You do not understand how it happened, but at some point, Ayata lost her bearings. It might have been the pain of losing Fuego, the panic of the escape, or perhaps it was just that the current altered your course and she didn't notice. Whatever the reason, it means that instead of reaching the island you had intended, you're now drifting helplessly, surrounded by an infinite expanse of flat water. With great effort, you manage to lift your head. You look at Ayata, who is lying in the other part of the canoe. It looks like she is breathing, but you cannot be certain. It may just be the slight rise and fall of the ocean. You let your head fall back down. It is too hard to keep it raised for long. Suddenly, your fingers feel wet. At first, you suspect it is your mind playing tricks on you, but then it feels increasingly real. Is the pirogue sinking? You lift your hand to see, but it is not water on your fingers, but blood. In front of you, Helen is splayed out on the bed. The sheets are soaked in blood, and it keeps flowing from her mouth, body, and eyes, like red tears. Why didn't you save me, Jake? Instinctively, you want to scream. Let's go closer, despite all the blood. You take a few steps towards Helen. The blood is flowing faster. The whole bed is red, but is it because of the blood? Or is it the color of the sheets? Jake, please don't leave me. She opens her arms. She is beautiful again. The one in front of you now is your Helen, as you remember her. Helen bursts into laughter. I keep forgetting to read it. It says, "Why are you doing this to me, Helen?" Helen bursts into laughter. It is the same sweet laugh that you had always loved, but now there is a jarring metallic ring to it. Why am I doing this, dear Jake? Because you did it to me first. Helen takes your hand. At first, you let her, and then when you try to pull away, you find that her grip has become vice-like. A sound, starting low, begins to rise up. You catch movements out of the corner of your eyes, as if something is crawling inside the walls of your bedroom. The movement seems to grow, and now the walls are pulsating slowly, as if something living is pushing on them from behind. You again try to free yourself, but find that it is impossible. She brings her face close to yours and whispers into your ear, "Shh, my love. Do not be afraid. There is this being made of 1,000,000 parts, which crawled inside of me. and you just let it happen. Now you must let this being crawl inside you too. The walls begin to crack, and the crack begins to spread and widen. Through the cracks emerge terrible black shapes like tendrils, searching to suffocate the air itself. As they slowly grow out of the walls, they begin to look like roots or tentacles. Then you become aware that they are not moving. Growing randomly, they are reaching towards you. A sharp pain tears you from the nightmare. Perhaps you had some sort of seizure in your dream because now your whole body is racked with painful cramps. You feel tremendous heat, but it is not the sun, it is inside your body. It is a fever, and it is rising. You try to sit up and call Toyota, but the canoe is rocking. With great difficulty, you clutch the edge of the boat and haul yourself up. The sea is calm, but you see Ayata leaning over the sea. She has sunstroke and has probably gone mad in the heat. You try to shout to stop her, but you are too late, and you watch her fall overboard. With all the effort you can possibly muster, you try to reach out to her, but you are physically incapable of moving. She floats, almost motionless at the surface of the water. She doesn't even have the energy to pull her head out of the water. You make another desperate attempt to grab her foot, but you lose consciousness and fall back into the boat. The last image you see is Ayata's body drifting away. You come to and pass out again, several times. When you find yourself again conscious, you try to open your eyes and to move, but you are unable. When you are finally able to open your eyes, it is night. It is much cooler, and the drop in temperature relieves your pain somewhat. Your physical pain, at least. You think sorrowfully of Ayata, of Fuego, and all the villagers, all the lives you were unable to save, like Helen's too. You cough, and the sudden movement gives you searing pain in your chest, your shoulders, and your arms. Perhaps your time has come. You close your eyes. You're ready. When you open your eyes again, you see little tongues of mist reaching over the side of the pirogue. Then you black out again. A loud and violent noise brings you back to consciousness. It takes you some time to recognize that it is the foghorn of a ship. Your little pirogue is suddenly hit by large waves, despite the total lack of wind. There's another foghorn blast just before you lose consciousness yet again. Something big is coming. When does this end? I feel like anytime I think it's going to end, it doesn't actually end. Okay. Also, notes. This is not... Okay. So no matter what, that was definitely... You lose Ayata, you lose Fuego, I'm assuming. Or I mean, he could just be still running around the island, hopefully causing havoc to the cultists. You are lying staring at the ceiling, which seems to be pulsating and rocking, slowly and steadily. Suddenly you're convinced that it is about to break and come crashing down on you, so you flinch involuntarily. There is no way of knowing whether this latest hallucination is the result of long days spent drifting, parched on the open seas, or some other mysterious cause. The bed in which you find yourself is soft and comfortable, but you cannot really enjoy it. In fact, you feel a certain amount of revulsion. It is too soft, too calm. You're half expecting fearsome, dark, and slimy appendages to begin emerging from the sheets to suffocate you at any moment. After having spent several weeks at sea, at the mercy of the wind, tide and currents, you were picked up by a ship and taken to the United States of America. All of your memories, the island, the cult Ayata, are tangled up together like a confused vortex in your mind. They are all strange, distant images, but nevertheless, you are finding it increasingly difficult to distinguish them from your present reality. A polite rap at the door tells you that food has been prepared for dinner. You open your eyes. You have been in this hotel for the past 2 days. When the captain made it known that the sunburnt drifter was in fact a scholar from London, the University of New York offered to help out until you could return to England. So they gave you a bed, food, and a small sum of money sufficient for essentials. Considering whether or not to accept the invitation to dinner, you see a note being slipped under the door. A note for you. Let's pick up. Could be our mysterious helper. You jump out of the bed and have only taken a step or two towards the door when a rush of blood to your head makes you see stars. The walls of the room are spinning to infinity. All around you, you see faces and eyes in dark, fractal arrangements. They are everywhere, on the walls, on the floor, and even on your skin. The head rush subsides. The walls of the room appear to have returned to normal levels of solidity. You rub your temples, take a few deep breaths, and finally go over to pick up the note. Still at the threshold of the door, you open the envelope and begin reading. Dear Dr. Huntington, my name is Jean-Baptiste Martin, biologist and surgeon. I heard about you from various and fragmentary reports here at the university. I am as curious as everyone to hear about the story of your shipwreck and salvation, but perhaps even more so about the rumors that you are a doctor. I think I heard, while questioning one of the men on the ship which brought you here to New York, the name of Martinus William Bejenrink, and I would like to invite you to my home laboratory so that we might discuss various matters which will no doubt be to our mutual interest. Yours sincerely, Jean-Baptiste Martin. Also in the envelope is a business card with an address. On the back, in beautiful calligraphy, is the time at which you are expected tomorrow. The invitation has astounded you. Over the past few days in New York, you have been feeling like a sort of performing monkey. At dinner, for example, you have felt inquisitive glances on you from all sides. For once not threatening, but impertinent nonetheless. This, however, is the first interest you have received from a colleague. You know the cultists are still around, right? On one hand, you consider it perfectly normal that your sudden and mysterious recovery from the sea should create such curiosity. But on the other, you cannot help but be suspicious of this letter. Having decided to find out more about your host before accepting the invitation, you make inquiries at the hotel reception, who direct you to a moderately sized yet well-selected library. You start looking haphazardly, and it is not long before you find information about Martin, or however you're supposed to say his name. He is a French scholar who has moved some years ago to New York to take a seat at the university there. For a young man, he seems to have published quite a number of interesting papers, and the general consensus is that he is very able and studious fellow of whom great things are expected. Apparently, due to his great curiosity and enthusiasm, he is poised to become an important name in academia, not only in his adopted New York, but worldwide. Reading these details about his life make you feel much better about the invitation. It may prove to be a diverting encounter after all. You're a guest in a hotel for a foreign city. You're not exactly in a good position to obtain a gun without drawing attention. You don't want to start alarming people, at least not yet. You go downstairs for the evening meal. Taking advantage of a heated discussion amongst the others, you take and conceal a sharp steak knife. The cold metal pressed against your skin gives you some feeling of security. You ask the hotel receptionist to deliver your reply to Martine, then return to your room. You're aware that your university benefactors are expecting you to reestablish yourself, and it is not hard to suppose that this meeting with Martine could be the first of many. You know you should be considering your moves very carefully. After only a few hours, you hear back from Martine. A carriage will be sent to pick you up at the hotel at lunchtime tomorrow. Pleasant chat with colleagues. Okay, I just want to get rid of these. I have 120 points, huh? The sun set several hours ago. You're sitting silently at the desk in your hotel room. You glance over at the bed as if it were a ferocious animal, crouching ready to attack. Sleeping and dreaming have not exactly been enjoyable recently. Hello, regulator. The story does not end at the island. It turns out it still keeps going. Nonetheless, you also know that you cannot very well go to tomorrow's meeting with Martine in this frayed state. You should try to get at least a few hours rest. Having resolved as much, you are going over to your bed when you hear noise coming from the direction of the door. Then you detect an even fainter rustle. Let's go cautious. You creep closer to the door, tiptoeing, keeping your eyes strained to pick up any further noises. Yet you hear nothing. Even when you press your ear right up against the door, you do, however, notice another message at your feet. You bend to pick it up. Dear Jake, I'm sure you are just now beginning to feel safe, far from the insanity which has been surrounding you these past few years. However, a good friend must also point out complacency where he sees it. Be very careful, Jake. The cult is active, very active indeed. You should know by now just how far it extends and how it maintains a presence in the most unexpected of places. Martine is just another line of silk in the web being spun around you. Do not let yourself become the fly. You sit considering all that this new message conveys. Your paranoia and suspicions have been confirmed as warranted yet again. You were right to distrust Martine's invitation. That is, if your mysterious informant can actually be trusted. What if it is, in fact, he who has nefarious intentions? Let's go cautious. You're perplexed by Martine's interest in you. It doesn't have this ring of simple academic curiosity. You have decided tomorrow you will send him another message apologizing and declining his invitation to lunch. To make up for it, you will propose meeting up in the afternoon at the hotel bar. This way you'll be able to observe him in the public space and he won't be able to pull any nasty surprises if there is any basis to your suspicions or the informant's warnings. You spend the morning between the hotel restaurant and the bar. Martine's reply is prompt. He is sorry about your setback and says he will be pleased to join you for afternoon tea. You had expected some sort of excuse on his part. Perhaps your suspicions and the informant's message had exaggerated. You are, however, feeling decidedly more relaxed about the encounter, and you are even becoming somewhat curious about Martine. You are in the smoking lounge when a waiter announces his arrival. Let him come to us. Dr. Huntington, I presume. The Frenchman walks over to you with a calm and cheerful demeanor. At this point, your plan of studying him seems a little pointless, since there appears to be nothing odd or false about him at all. You greet him, and after a brief exchange of pleasantries, you invite him to accompany you to the bar. With a wry grin, the Frenchman suggests that you might partake of something stronger, and the suggestion amuses you too. It has been many weeks since you have felt the joy of easy and pleasurable conversation. You cannot help but like this little heavily accented man, and you begin to relax to a degree which you had thought was impossible for you now. You lose track of time completely until Martine points out that it is getting dark. We have lost ourselves in chit-chat, mon ami. At this point, however, it would make more sense to organize ourselves for dinner rather than lunch, and I can easily make the necessary arrangements with my housekeepers, perhaps while I show you my laboratory. We still have the knife with us, right? We're supposed to be careful. Let's be wary. Think of a plausible excuse. Thank you, but I'm not yet entirely convalesced, and I'm also rather tired. Come, Professor Huntington. You do not need to make excuses. The invite is made to you with the very best of intentions. Martine immediately understood your intentions and straightaway brushes off your hesitation, but his tone carries not the slightest hint of accusation or reproach. In fact, he is smiling as he speaks. Achievement. You realize... Okay, hold on. Oh, no matter what, it makes you go. Hilarious. You were suspicious of Martine and tried to be as cautious as possible with him. Okay, you realize that there is no other logical objections that you can make, and so you might as well accept his invitation. Okay, it's hilarious. No matter what, we have to go. Take a drink of water first. The carriage trip is rather short, or at least it seems that way, because you are fascinated by Martine's many anecdotes about the various scholars he has met. You find yourself smiling often, and even laughing. You have not laughed for a long time. Martine treats you as an honored guest. After making preparations for dinner with the servants, he takes you to his office. Once there, you see that it accesses a small laboratory that he has instilled in his house. I bet that you too have come across certain lines of inquiry which can become almost an obsession, is it not so? Let's agree. Ha! I knew I had discovered a kindred spirit. Come then, mon ami, let me show you my obsessions. Martine takes your arm and guides you towards the door. Please make yourself at home, Dr. Huntington. You enter the dimly lit laboratory. Then, as you are crossing the threshold, you suddenly have the strange but definite sensation that despite the darkness and the silence inside, there are other people there. You hear the door close behind you, and someone pulls close the curtains, leaving only a small blade of light. 3 figures emerge from the shadows and advance toward you. Mon Dieu! Who are you? You waste no time in drawing the knife from your sleeve. The first man comes at you, but you take him by surprise and stab him in the stomach. He yelps and falls to the ground. There are 2 more opponents. Okay. He sounded surprised. Martine lets out an effeminate shriek and runs terrified into the farthest corner of the laboratory. Attack. You rush forward, swinging straight at them. They weren't expecting it, and they tried to avoid your line of attack. You notice them exchanging meaningful looks. They are no doubt working on a coordinated attack. There is no time to lose. Medicine? Really want to... Oh, all the way with medicine? Let's go all the way with medicine. Look around the laboratory for anything which could be useful. And when we're full up, we should be successful every time with medicine now, right? It is very difficult to distinguish objects in the darkness of the laboratory, but you managed to find a special looking bottle containing a transparent liquid. It appears to be carefully and securely sealed shut. It must be an acid of some kind. How? We threw acid at them? Oh my god. Okay, here's 70 points. So we still have enough. We're getting close. We can get agility if we need it, and speechcraft for more. You snatch the bottle and throw it at one of your attackers. The sound of breaking glass is straight away followed by screams and a faint sizzling. His screams and manic convulsive gestures distract the other 2 opponents, giving you the time to strike and knock them out. The only sound in the laboratory now is coming from Martine. You find him crouched under a counter with his arms over his head, murmuring a prayer in French. Your heart is racing and you realize that more men could arrive at any moment. You must quickly find a way to get out of this static yet perilous situation. Why would I destroy the laboratory? What's about the laboratory that I need to... Let's escape. You get to the door and pull the handle, but as you expect, it is locked. How am I gonna... Ooh. Okay, really, why does it want me to destroy the laboratory? I don't understand. Why is this an option? Why am I destroying the laboratory? Do I have enough strength to... I'm afraid of this one because I don't want to lose the knife. Mustering all your remaining strength and sense of urgency, you hurl yourself at the door. Its hinges buckle with the force, but it does not yield. The men are still stunned on the ground, and so you make a second Equally fruitless attempt at the door. Okay, no matter what, we're destroying the laboratory. You're acutely aware that more men could arrive at any moment, or the men you have already dealt with will recover enough to launch a new attack. Martine's servants are also at home, and you have no way of knowing whether they too are involved. Martine is still crouched in the corner. He does not even appear to know what's going on. You start to overturning the tables. A fire would be useful in drawing the attention of the authorities, specifically the New York Fire Brigade, which would hinder your opponents considerably. Look for flammable substance with which to ignite the laboratory. In the dim light, you start rummaging through flasks, beakers, and other containers, using your nose to try to identify their contents. Frisking the shelves with your fingers, you come across a piece of paper with something scrawled on it. You obviously cannot read it in the darkness, so you pocket it and resume your search. Oh my god, I got 24 experience points with that. Finally, you recognize sulfuric acid. You spill it over the table and light it with matches that you found next to a Bunsen burner. The flames leap up voraciously. You find a window and you get ready to smash it to escape. You go over to where Martine is hiding and grab his arm, ready to pull him away. No, don't hurt me! Finally, Martine raises his face and sees that it is you, pointing at the fire. You shout at him to follow you, but then drag him behind you anyway. Martine is terrified and extremely awkward in his movements. You seize him and force him through the window as the flames and the heat behind you grow to crescendo. So we burns a guy with acid, and now we set them on fire. I mean, not them, but they're still in there, so they're going to be set on fire. Oh boy. I found the clue in Martine's lab? Wait, what was the clue? This. Okay, that was the clue. I must have completely missed that somehow, despite reading it? Sorry, I was thinking about having to burn the lab down. Pyromania is the achievement. You take a few rapid steps away from the house, pulling Martine along behind you. He is in a bad state, and you have to stop to help him. Turning back to the laboratory, you see the flames are starting to rise up out of the window. Martine is staring at them as if in a trance. In the distance, you can hear the sirens of the New York Fire Brigade. You just send the professor. You have to get away from here. You leave behind the English-style lawn surrounding Martine's house and start running along the road. Eventually, you let go of Martine's arm so that you can go a little further ahead to assess the situation. Behind you, you hear Martine stopping yet again to catch his breath. Wait for him to breathe. Don't be too impatient. Martine is a mess. He is certainly no athlete. Suddenly, you hear a noise coming from the far end of the street. There is no way to know whether it's the fire department or more cultists, so you flatten yourself against the wall to avoid being seen. Martine, watching you, does likewise. The noise dies down and no one enters the street. You let out a sigh of relief, and you are preparing to continue your escape when you hear a sound behind you that you recognize immediately. The click of a revolver being cocked. You turn slowly around. Martine is holding a revolver aimed at your face. Suddenly his labored breathing has vanished, along with his French accent. Dr. Huntington, please follow me immediately, and no one will come to harm. Speechcraft? Up that. I really feel that I must compliment you on your fantastic acting. I never suspected that you too were a member of the cult. Martine smiles at the flattery and pulls back his sleeve to reveal his wrist tattoo. You seize the opportunity and strike him with your left hand, so as to disarm him. Martine manages to retain the gun, but now he is grasping it in the position from which it is impossible to fire. You're caught in a desperate struggle with him over possession of the weapon. In the event, he stumbles and slams headfirst into a wall and knocks himself unconscious. Do we take the gun? You bend down and start rummaging through the pockets of the unconscious cultist. You find something interesting in his inside jacket pocket, a notebook. It is a black notebook with a hard cover and a raffia band keeping it closed. Flicking through the white-lined pages, you come across various notes and sketches. On the first page, you recognize the eye symbol of the cult. You put it in your pocket. Once again, you find yourself in great danger. There's not much in the way of choice. You must leave New York at once. You walk out of the residential area and towards the train station. Going back to the hotel makes no sense, since there is nothing there that you really need. You will take the first train that comes. You have set many fires recently, and maybe I did set many fires, didn't I? I blew up the underground. I set up a bomb. I set fire to the lab. Did I also set fire to the lab in the... Yeah, I think I did. Huh. Pyromania, hey. Okay. Agility, observation. We're maxed on medicine. Lulled by the rhythmic rocking of the train, you find yourself suddenly immersed in darkness as the train enters a tunnel. It takes a while for your eyes to adjust to the dim light, but when they do, you start to distinguish details of the rock formation inside the tunnel. Rather than a man-made tunnel, it looks like some kind of naturally formed cave. There are hundreds of stalactites and stalagmites all around. As your vision improves even more, you notice a strange gleam on the surface of the rock, as if it were covered with something slimy. Then you can see the same viscous substance forming large rope-like drops at the tip of the stalactites. All of a sudden you realize that the walls of the cave are moving towards you. The movement becomes less subtle, and the rocks seem to be closing in on your carriage. As the train is ripped to shreds and smashed glass flies in all directions, you finally understand that you are not being crushed by stalactites, but by giant teeth. You wake with a violent start and let out a barely suppressed scream. You had fallen asleep with your head against the window. You regain your composure and feel the eyes of all the other passengers in the carriage fixed upon you. Thankfully, however, no one dares to speak to you. You have no idea how long you have been asleep, how long the journey will take, or even where you are going. You had taken the first train out of New York Station, leaving the city only a couple of hours shy of dawn. Skip for clues. You pick up the notebook and flick through it again. There are more strange symbols and strings of text written in code. It is scant in useful information, however, except a long series of calculations. What these calculations refer to is a mystery until you see a drawing of a comet and maps of certain locations in North America on an adjacent page. This must be the same comet mentioned by your informant, the same comet prophesied by the drawings in the cave. You shiver involuntarily. You scrutinize the maps, hoping to find further clues, but they are almost completely without annotation. You keep flipping back and forwards through the notebook, looking for a pattern. Eventually, you do in fact find something. Two symbols that are completely different to the others and are repeated many times. They seem to refer to two cities, Boston and Plymouth. You pull out a piece of paper, which you found in the darkness of Martine's laboratory. It appears to be a sketch, perhaps a stylized lighthouse, done as hurriedly as possible. It could still turn out to be a clue of some kind. The train ends its journey. You cannot help but smile when you see that you have arrived in a town called Providence. When you look at the map to see where it is, you have another surprise. You are very close to New Bedford. Apparently, what was supposed to be an attempt at an escape has only brought you next to one of the cult's main centers of power. It seems to you now that all the choices you have made so far have all been inexorably leading to this destination. You're clutching Martine's notebook tightly. When you alight from the train, you do not even bother leaving the station and go straight to the ticket office. Apparently, you have very few options left. You only need to decide between Boston and Plymouth. Okay. I mean, of course, everything's gonna... 60 points. Agility. So I need 90 for speechcraft, 75 for observation. Agility is 60. Okay. Let's go to Boston. Boston has an aloof and pompous air about it. The buildings, the streets, even the Bostonians themselves all seem to exude haughtiness. Looking up at the buildings, something in the sky catches your eye. There's a white streak, like a scar, cutting through the heavens. A comet. The comet. You stop to buy a newspaper, and right there, on the front page, is the story about the comet. You learn that for at least a couple of days it will be visible even in daylight, as it passes over the American continent. You must find the cultists, but you have no idea where to start looking in this unfamiliar city. It seems reasonable to assume that they want to recreate the bizarre ritual that you saw represented on the walls of the cave. To that end, they would have to sacrifice more human life, but you have determined to stop them. Boston is a very large city, however, and you still have very little in terms of clues. You decide to find a library to do some research and have a more detailed study of the book that you took from Martine. There may yet be information about the comet, or even some clues that will let you decipher its strange code. Look for the city library. Let's just ask. You stop a well-dressed gentleman as he is passing you on the pavement. Excuse me, in which direction might I find the public library? The man is silent for a moment, as if deciding whether to pretend not to understood your question, or to just answer you. Passerby, it is more than a mile from here. Go along Essex Street until you reach Boylston Street and continue on in the same direction. You will see the library on your right. He gives you a nasty, impatient look, as if to say, is that enough? Can I go now? You thank him and watch him walking off, visibly relieved to be doing so. You follow his directions to the public library. You are a foreigner in a foreign city. Is that sufficient to explain your pervading sensation of being watched? Why do you still keep catching glimpses of figures that then disappear into the shadows? You look around. Across the street, there is a man who seems overly intent on minding his own business. But is he really? It seems to you that he looked away the moment you turned your gaze in his direction. Then you see something protruding from his sleeve. You are far away and certainly cannot tell for certain, but it could be the seemingly ubiquitous tattoo of the cult. Follow. If the cultist has a presence here in Boston, its members must be numerous here too. Anyone could be a cultist, and one of them might have easily seen you arriving at the station. This time, though, you are determined not to try and ignore or avoid them. Without being conspicuous, you study the man's behavior, and after a short moment, he starts walking off. You follow at a distance. You keep following him for the course of several streets. He has a languid air and does not turn around even once. Following him is easy. Then suddenly you see him becoming tense. Something is about to happen. You steel yourself in anticipation of whatever is about to occur. He starts slowing down, and another figure approaches him. It's a girl. As he embraces her, you see a broad smile light up her face. They kiss, and he even picks her up in his enthusiasm. As he does so, it lifts his sleeve to reveal the tattoo on his wrist. A mermaid. The man is probably just a sailor. You walk away, reprimanding yourself for your foolishness. You retrace your steps back to the library. As you get closer and ascend the steps outside, you're considering where might be the most profitable place to start. Perhaps the astronomy section could be a logical first step. As you are browsing through the books, you run your fingers along their spines, as if you are able to read their titles with your fingertips. Ideally, you would like to first find some sort of treatise, specifically about comets. You're trying to read the title of a particularly arcane volume You notice a slip of paper, a note between your feet. You turn to the direction from which the note appeared, see someone's back disappearing between the labyrinthian bookshelves. Let's pick up the note. Pick up the slip of paper. Dear Jake, your attempts at taking direct action against the Hastilic cult are commendable, but they are onto you now, and you can no longer be expected to face them by yourself. Perhaps the time has come for us to meet. At the bottom of the card, there is an address. Okay, I just want to get rid of all the shiny. You have 100 points. Unconditional trust. Perhaps the time has come to finally meet this person and stop acting merely as his puppet. Besides, you have a mountain of things that you want to ask him. You look up the necessary directions at the library and set off directly to the address written on the note. You walk at a steady pace. You want to put an end to this situation and feel that this meeting could be decisive in this regard. The directions given on the note are quite simple. You just have to walk to the end of this alley and it should be there. You've just started to cross the road when you see two men emerging from the shadows further down the alley. They are staring straight at you. When you turn to look back the way you came, you see two more of them. One of them has no sleeve and has tattoos in full view. The cultist. I can't fight anyway. You feel the cultist's eyes staring at you. You scan your surroundings, looking for a way to escape. There's a metal door, and judging by the steam coming out of it, it probably leads to a kitchen, perhaps that of a restaurant. There are no other options, so you dash towards the door. The four men immediately chase you. Upon opening the door, you are assailed by a strong smell of fish, and you run between the kitchen counters and cookers, noticing that many of the kitchen staff are carrying sharp knives. You turn around to check if they are following you and see them slipping quietly in, one man at a time. That's my just want to make sure. As you pass, you pull down a cabinet filled with plates and dishes. It makes a tremendous noise, but you are not confident that it will slow them down much. You keep on running, using all your hidden reserves of energy. Having passed through the large kitchen, you're now traversing the dining room. The place is very crowded with customers, but the cultists do not hesitate to follow you. One of them knocks into a customer and is sent sprawling onto a table. You're looking for the exit. The righteous smashing of a large number of plates and glasses is attracting the attention of everyone in the building. Finally, you find the exit and leave the restaurant. All you can hit? Sorry, what's this achievement? You escape through the kitchen, which results in an exciting pursuit. You are back in the street and running as fast as you can. You dive in and out of various small alleyways, trying to pull them off the scent. You're suddenly reminded of being chased in Delft, but you obviously do not have the time to linger on the thought. As you are heading into yet another narrow alley, your vision suddenly fogs over again. You're dizzy and the world has taken on a warped aspect, just as before. Again, the sentient shadows circle, swim, and glide around you, and again, they either watch you in silence or feed off your energy. The spinning vision returns too, and you feel your legs weaken and you fall away below you. Forcing yourself to get up again, you wobble, then you slam face first into a brick wall. Slowly but surely, the world returns to its normal appearance, but your strength will take more time to return. Compounding your trouble, you notice that you have run straight into a cul-de-sac, and your attackers have had ample opportunity to catch up with you due to your condition. Put your hands up and do not resist. You're unarmed, but at this point, even if you had a weapon, it would not have been much use. You look at the men even as they are studying you. They seem uncertain. They obviously doubt the sincerity of your surrender. The best approach, you decide, is to be utterly submissive and docile. The men look at each other and then move slowly forward towards you. One of them grabs your arm from behind and puts you in a lock. No more funny business. You made the correct choice. We are not enemies. Men tug at you and drag you away from the alley. You see them looking around shiftingly. As they walk, they are distributed around you so as to cover you from sight to prevent anyone suspecting a kidnapping. At the end of the alley, you spy a carriage, and it is clear that they are taking you to it. When you are near to it, you see one of them take out a small case. He opens and you see a syringe. You think to yourself that at least it is a normal syringe, not one of those which the cult uses to infect their human guinea pigs. Oh, there's no need for such extreme measures. You spoke to them with a calm, almost cheerful voice to avoid showing any aggression. I'm going to sneeze badly. The men look at you, then each other. They seem to be considering your request. One of them pulls out a hood and puts it over your head. You smile. You far prefer to remain conscious for the journey. You let yourself be guided to the steps of the carriage. As you put your foot on the steps, you feel a small sting on your neck and someone laughing. You try to turn around, but it seems that up and down have exchanged places. You fall back into the seat, unconscious. Signed, a friend. Okay, just gonna take a drink of water. As if you were emerging from the deepest of seas, you fade back into reality, and your eyelids feel compulsion to open. It is a lengthy and awkward process involving many painful shudders along the length of your body, especially in places where you were stuck. It takes you a while to remember who you are and where you are. You can feel the effects of a fever. Your skin is burning, your head is spinning, your throat is swollen, and your hearing is impaired, as if muffled. Nonetheless, you hear chanting in the distance. After a time, you regain your senses, enough to look about and observe your surroundings. You are in a small cell, hewn from the rock, lying still fully dressed on the coarse, thin mattress on the wooden plank attached to the wall. What does this say? I'm curious. We're in Plymouth now. We knew you were coming. The time of the comet is upon us. The time of Hystalic is upon us. It was inconceivable that you could be absent. You would attempt an answer, but your mouth has gone numb. Now the walls feel dry, as if coated with a thin layer of sand. You can only just make out the figure standing in the doorway. She is wearing only the dark kilt and mask of the cult. Let's recover. Lie back and try to get your strength back. Given the overwhelming sense of feverish nausea, nausea, I can't say these words, pervading your whole body, you decide that it is probably a bad time to try and stand up. You're struggling to keep a clear head. You need to sleep. That's it. Let Hystalic rise up within you. Can you feel the fever? It is his spirit growing inside you. Let it grow. Let it fill you. The ritual is coming to its zenith. You have felt his power more and more as you have journeyed towards this temple wherein he is entombed. At last his chains will be broken. Finally our cult's efforts will come to fruition. Hystalic, Lord of Legions, will finally have domain over the world, and we shall rule with him. The woman begins chanting in a primitive, harsh, and incomprehensible language, a language you have never heard before, composed of guttural sounds akin to grunting or wild growls. There is only one word which you can recognize as being repeated over and over: Hystalic. Your fever appears to be getting worse, or could it be something else? What is this strange feeling going on inside you? You are unable to reason and unable to think. Yet despite the constant harrowing chanting, your eyelids close and you fall asleep. Hello, continue. A wave of swirling, unfamiliar colors hits your retinas. They seem at the limit, if not beyond, the range of colors of the ordinary world. Some seem to have spatial depths, others smell of opaque yellow, though you would normally have no idea what opaque yellow smells like. Carmine red squeezes your intestines. Or maybe your intestines are that color. Just looking at them gives you vertigo and makes you nauseated, yet you cannot look away because they are all around you. You are in a place, in the physical location, but you are struggling to find even the vaguest point of reference. There is a regular geometry to your surroundings, but it is reality with other rules that you can only define as alien in some way. All the shapes you can see are distorted and unfathomable. Even as you take a step, you are unable to determine in which direction you have moved. You had believed that you were moving upward, but when you hazard a second step, you find yourself on a downward incline. You're hit by a wave of panic. Jake. You hear your name being called from all directions at once from the outside, but also seemingly on the inside. It is called only once and by a single voice, but it sounds to you as if it is shouted and whispered 10, 100, or even 1,000 times. Something moved closer to you. You cannot understand its aspect or even whether it is man or creature, nor can you make it out exactly where it is. Is it in front of you or at your side? Just see my points. Let's try to escape. You move in the opposite direction to the approaching thing, but nearly end up running into it. You fall back off, turn, and again try to get away from it, but your senses betray you once more. You cannot even distinguish up and down properly. In the grip of a terrible nausea, you fall and hit against something. The voice repeats your name. Jake. Open your eyes, Jake. Look at me. You reopen your eyes, not even realizing that you had them closed. For a few moments you are dazzled and nauseated by the brilliant colors and shapes, but your eyes adjust and finally you can see the figure that called your name approach. His features are humanoid, but his face has a soft, almost fluid texture and changes from one moment to the next. Although his skin is dark, its appearance shifts constantly from one face to another. Do you recognize me, Jake? You recognize the messenger, then the coach driver, now the servant in the livery, now the librarian, now Boss the fisherman, and finally Besterai the interpreter. Of course you recognize all the faces that you have seen from Zanzibar onwards. All have been unimportant people who have helped you in some small way or pushed in a certain direction. But between one human face and the next are the flashes of light. In these flashes you catch momentarily glimpses of inhuman, savage creatures, undefinable horrors which alternate with the human faces. Yes, I was your friend, your informant. I am how do I pronounce his name? Nerlathotep, messenger of God Azathoth. As his voice is speaking these words, his appearance mutates yet again, taking on even more unspeakable features. First, he becomes a creature whose head is one huge red tentacle, then he becomes an Egyptian pharaoh. Thanks to you and to the comet, Hisilik will be released tonight from his ancient prison in the abyss. Is summoned with the correct ritual, the passage of the comet and the right celestial configuration will provide the energy necessary for the buried god to break free from his prison. Tonight, Hisilik will give free rein to his hunger, spreading like 1,000 of plagues and diseases that make up his being. Nerlathotep's face and aspect change continuously. Innumerable men and monsters appear before you in turns, and his rattling voice penetrates your body like something with a definite physical form. You close your eyes. His servants shall be his slaves, but they will also hold the reins of the world for him. The future for the human race will be death and suffering. You, Jake, are in fact the key to releasing Histelic, yet, by the same token, you could also lock him up forever. Is this really happening? Or are these merely delusions caused by the fever? Have you really become the turning point of a clash between alien beings, divine entities from different planes of existence, fighting for control of the planet? Or are these mere feverish delusions, the fruits of paranoia and delirium caused by the disease and all the things you have been through? I accept. I accept this bizarre new reality. You've completely understood the true nature. You haven't completely understood the true nature. Oh, interesting. What? I'm confused. How's this go? But why would that cause... Huh, I'm confused. Why would that cause, Okay. Anyway, I imagine it could, yeah, it's blotted out anyways. You already accepted. Why me? Although you have hundreds of questions, this is both the most urgent and the first which you are able to verbalize. You are a doctor. You understood the concept of a healthy carrier. You were infected with the original strain derived from Histelic himself. Yet you are here, neither dead nor healed. Can you feel it there inside you, pervading your entire being? It has been there the whole time, and now Histelic is near. It has reawakened. A healthy carrier, entirely unaware of the fact this whole time you yourself have been the perfect subject for your research on the disease, although it must, of course, have been a different strain for the simple fact that you contracted the disease from a sick man and not via inoculation by the syringe of the cult. If you are not caught up in this absurd, distorted reality yourself, you would no doubt find the tragic irony of it all somewhat amusing. Histelic is the disease itself, yet his essence is never confined. His body is like a swarm. Every particle of the disease is part of him. He is the disease, and all its emanations, but Histelic is many other diseases too. He is, what did the doctor call it? A virus. Narlathotep constantly shifts in appearance and position. Some second he is on your right as one of the black men you met in Delft, then he is 3 steps ahead of you, a stern-looking coach driver. Since you are already in communion with Histelic, you're the perfect candidate for the climax of the rite taking place in a number of hours, in conjunction with the passing comet. As such, however, you are also the only element that could ruin it. Ruin! His final words come from behind you, and so you turn your head, but when you do, there is nothing there. You do not even bother looking around, because you have realized that in this world, vision is no longer the primary sense. Narlathotep has gone, leaving you with this strange and distorted reality. Imago Dei. Okay, what are my points right now? 43. Oh my god, I got 32 points. Okay, well now I'm over 70 at the very least. I'm kind of wondering if agility is even... if there's a point to agility now, because... Okay. So our informer was an ancient being. Good to know. After your conversation with Narlathotep, The dream world in which you find yourself starts to gradually remain a semblance of meaning, although it is just ill-defined as before. Even although it is just as ill-defined as before, now at least you make an educated guess at what direction to take. Now you feel that you're able to make an actual decision instead of drifting aimlessly around these warped chambers. Interesting. Take the direction that you suppose is backwards. Take the direction that you suppose is forwards. What's backwards? You have found a way to move through the distorted space with some degree of certainty. Struggling with wave after wave of nausea and disorientation, you eventually make some headway, but to where? Without any reference points, you have no clear aim, and you cannot help asking yourself whether there really is, in fact, a way out of this world. I'm not sure if those two choices are going to matter for anything, but... Oh, hi! You sense something almost more like a feeling than a sound, like movement in sand. Spiked shadows materialize in front of you. At first they look like ugly stains in the darkness, but then their outlines become more defined. Horrific, long-limbed entities with claws and deformed eyeless heads. You instinctively run in the opposite direction to the shifting, creeping beasts. As they get closer, the piercing sound of their snarling fills your ears. Your mind is still receiving distorted signals from your environment, yet your desperation to escape is helping you focus. The beings are beginning to move in front of you with fast and wild bursts of movement. In a way, they suit this place that is no place. You have to find a way out before escape becomes impossible and you begin to lose your determination. Part of you just wants to give up. It would be so easy now just to give away to oblivion and let yourself be snatched up. Deep inside you, though, there is still your fear and your anger. Jake Huntington is still there, struggling away inside. Suddenly, you are confronted by another image. This latest apparition is upon her face, a smile that leaves you breathless and stops your heart. Helen raises a hand, inviting you to take it in your arms. She appears now as she was before the disease, how she was when you first fell in love with her. Your sweet Helen is there, smiling and stretching her pale hand out to you. Could it be that she has appeared now to save you? It cannot be her, it's just another evil hallucination. You want to scream, to cry out in rage, yet another form of torture this nightmarish place has for you. The apparition that beckons you to its side cannot possibly be Helen. She may even perhaps be there as bait in some sort of hellish trap. You renew your efforts, pushing your will to survive and your strength to the very limits in your attempt to escape. The outstretched hand in front of you slowly becomes an obscene clawed stump. From the contorted face of the false Helen comes an ear-splitting screech of anger and frustration. You throw a last look at that creature, which would feign to be your dead wife. The figure no longer resembles a human being. Its gaping mouth has pulled back to reveal hundreds of sharp teeth. And now covering its entire head, lined with grotesque black trindles, this monster is now flanked by other creatures, and it motions them towards you like a general. You start running, but for how long will you be able to run? You run on with renewed vigor. You're beginning to get to better understand the structure and nature of this reality. Your senses too are starting to become used to the bizarre colors and distorted alien forms. These changes in you might not necessarily be good, though. You begin to see some possibilities in terms of directions, as if a path had opened up in front of you. Could that finally be a way out of this world? A small space? You're strained to the limits of your physical capabilities, all the time hearing behind you the awful noise of the beings chasing you. Then you realize your senses have betrayed you yet again. You're desperately looking for a logic there where there is none. Or is it a new trap laid by this nightmare world? There's no space now, no means of escape, and you are once again in the clutches of the dark creatures all around. Shadowy beings are upon you immediately and wrap themselves around you hungrily. There is now nothing you can do to stop them. There's no strength left in your body, and soon you feel the flesh being slowly torn from your body in large chunks. The pain is overwhelming, and soon it is the only thing filling your senses. Your eyes fall shut. When you open your eyes a moment later, the ghastly forms have vanished. The pain too is suddenly gone, and your body is once again whole. Now, however, you are falling. You're falling through space at a seemingly ever-increasing rate. You speed up and up until you are hurtling along at an incredible speed. The nightmare world drops away, falling entirely from your perception. The dark nothingness rushes towards you. Okay. Drink of water. Oh my god. You wake up with a start to find yourself back in your rock-walled cell. The cultist woman has gone. You still feel feverish and sore all over your body, but less so than before. You're panting heavily. You have just experienced the absolute worst of feverish nightmares, yet it seemed also real. Perhaps only certain parts of what happened to you happened in the dream world. It could be that your dream functioned as a kind of portal, but you are quite sure that your encounters with Nyarlathotep and the other beings were actually real. At the entrance of the cell appear 3 cultists, 2 women and a man. One of the women and the man approach you and start pulling off your shirt. The other woman is carrying up a sponge and a bowl filled with the clear, pungent fluid. You shake and try to break free. The man gets a firm hold on your arms, so you take advantage of your sitting position to give a few hard kicks to defend yourself. You land a hard kick to the man's solar plex, who is bent forward from the first blow. You're about to hit the back of his head when one of the 2 women gets a grip on your wrist with unexpected strength. The other woman hits you hard in your face and sidles up to your ear. We can do this nicely or not. It makes no difference to us at all. Your arms and legs do not need to be intact for the ritual to take place. We don't need you to be able to walk, because we can easily drag you all the way to the inner temple. By this time, the man has got up and now he hits you hard in the gut. Bent over and gasping for air, your visitors resume your ritual ablutions. After they have stripped you of your shirt, you're left alone with the woman who is continuing the ablution of your body. I will now walk out of here. You will follow me quietly and calmly. Or do I have to call for you to be dragged there? While you're considering your options, the woman puts her hand to her mask and raises it slightly. When you see her face by the dim light of the cell, you are utterly thunderstruck. Ayata. Yet you remain firm and impassive for a few moments. You saw Ayata die, and so seeing her now should be blowing your mind. Perhaps it would have before today, or up until a few hours ago, but not now. Not after the unspeakable thing you have just seen. You just look at her without speaking. You have no manifold aspects of Nyarlathotep. You have started to look out for other hidden realities beyond your own. You knew me as Ayata. To others, I have been known as Yolanda. To yet others as Madame Yi. Now you know who I am. I'm the Witch of Dreams, servant of Azathoth. I'm Yidra. The reality around you seems to bend and warp. You find yourself in the distorted and disturbing dream world in which you met Nyarlathotep. Only this time you are definitely awake. Yidra's appearance is no longer that of your shy Polynesian girl. She is now a resplendent goddess. You cannot help but look on in awe. Nyarlathotep spoke to you about the god Histolic, sleeping in chains below this temple, and of his worshippers who want to reawaken him and hand over the earth and all of humanity to satisfy his appetite. The summoning of Histolic would only ruin and sully this world, which rightfully belongs to Azathoth. You're paralyzed, stunned. Despite all your recent experiences, you are still shocked by intrusions from the dream world. Or perhaps it is Yidra herself who shocks you so you can somehow sense her vast hidden power. The time of Yazathoth will come, and the earth must be delivered to him as pure as can be. Histelic should not be unleashed, and his attempts to defile the earth must be punished. His chains must be tightened, and his prison made even smaller. His every possibility of escape must be taken away forever. You feel something, as if a hand were lightly touching your skin in a loving caress, but there is no hand, and Yidra's hands are lying at her side, yet you are certain that it is she who is somehow touching you. I met you when I was incarnate. It was I who created the fog. I who brought you to the island. For some time I have been watching different branches of the cult of Histelic, and I needed to meet you personally without outside interference. Her face carries a strange smile, somewhere between malevolent and pleased. Without knowing how, as if she had whispered it in your ear, you became aware that by interference she meant Nerlathatep. When we lay together, I got to know all about you, of your existence, and of the presence of a Histelic inside you. I needed to know, and to create a connection with your soul. Now I know the extent of your contamination. You cannot beat him in the flesh, but there is still a way. Now there are 2 hands on your body. You can feel them tracing the skin of your face. It is here, in this place, that my power is at its zenith. It is here, and now that we will sabotage the cult ritual and destroy both Histelic and the cult, once and for all. It is here now that we must join forces and fight together. You're struck by a sudden awareness. She will not make you do it. She will not force you. Whatever her motives, her purpose, and her power, it is you who must decide. Join forces with Yidra. Helen, Ayata, you close your eyes to focus clearly on these 2 women, and then you know at once that in this realm there is no need to vocalize your answers. The contact with Yidra's hands become more intense, and suddenly your senses explode and you are flooded with lofty feelings of attraction that go far beyond physical desire. You're drawn closer, and then both swept away, your spirits transmitted elsewhere. You feel the weight of the moon and stars looming over, but you dare not open your eyes, partially in fear that you will somehow get lost in the surrounding madness. Your contact and union with Yidra is physical, yes, but it is also something else beyond the power of normal senses to feel, or of language to describe. When you are coming to the peak, time itself begins to implode indefinitely with you. Then suddenly, the reality comes back like a sledgehammer, and you are back in the cell. This definitely isn't a dream. You can smell the damp air and feel the texture of the ground below your feet. She adjusts her mask, and suddenly she is no longer Yidra. The woman who replaces her starts collecting up the bowl and sponge as if nothing had happened, as if this person had noticed nothing at all. Yidra had been wearing her body as a vessel. 2 large cultist men enter the cell, grab you by the arms, and carry you off. Goodbye, Mr. Huntington. Okay, is this finally it? Every time I think it's like, this is the end. Nope. This is the end. Nope. But I think this may be finally it. Agility. We'll see. We joined forces with Yidra. Okay. Drink of water. As said, I will say, today I feel like I'm having a bit more difficulty speaking. You are taken to what must be some kind of holding room, also hewn from the rock, but not for long before you are picked up again and led along a winding, less artificial section of tunnel. Here, the going is much trickier because the tunnel is in almost pitch darkness and it turns illogically at certain points. Nonetheless, after a short time, you're led into a great hall, the temple of the cult of Histolic. Oh wow, okay. As you had expected, there are symbols everywhere, drawn or carved on rock walls, columns, and even on many of the giant head sculptures scattered around the temple. Despite their size, the giant head statues looked almost like mistakes or rejects from a sculptor, having hybrid, distorted, and unpleasant features. The temple is a giant acoustic amplifier for the cultists' dissonant chanting. In the center of the temple's huge, symmetrical dome above you is a small circular opening to the sky. Directly and precisely below the opening of the temple floor is a circular pool of water exactly the same size, in which you can see the reflection of the night. In front of the pool, a cultist is waiting for you. You assume from the extra items of expensive-looking cloth that he must be a priest, or at least someone high up in rank, probably the one to see to the correct observance during the ritual. The man abandons his position and comes towards you. So, Dr. Huntington, we meet again. Is this Meyer? Meyer! That voice and the accent are instantly familiar from the secret club, and from before, slowly, he lowers his mask, uncovering his face and confirms your suspicions. It's Meyer. It was not so long ago that I was asking you to join us. If I recall correctly, you were not especially convinced at the time. Challenge. Meyer smiles. Sorry, I didn't read that. It says something along the lines of, I wish I killed you. That was my only regret. Meyer smiles. We would have preferred you to have actually volunteered for this role, but things will now follow our original plans, even against your will. Finally, Huntington, you're a doctor. You know perfectly well that it is not possible to save all of them, just as it is not possible to eliminate all threat. For example, shall we talk about that child? What was his name? Ah yes, Scott. You were not even able to save the life of your friend the commander's only son. You're dumbfounded. How could he know so much about your life? If nothing else, you managed to prevent another young boy from losing his life, or at least he struggled until the very end. Fuego had his fate sealed for him when you came to try and rescue him. Small constellations, but in any case, you're acutely aware of the trail of blood caused by your actions. Okay, what is it? I did everything I possibly could to save them both, but your action prevented me from doing so. What actually are you going to do? Is torture part of the ritual? Calmly. Now we know how determined you can be, Huntington. It's just a pity that you have always been a step or two behind us, especially on the really important questions, as at the time of your wife Helen's illness. It feels like an electric shock. What does he mean by this? Could it be that the cult was somehow involved in the sickness and death of your wife? Can I threaten? Speechcraft? I have points for it. Threaten. Try to intimidate him in some way. Always one step ahead. Always sure. Sometimes it's the best way not to know this. Sometimes it's the best way not to notice what could be coming at you from behind. Or did you think I came here all by myself? That certainly gets the cultist's attention, and some even step unconsciously backwards. Has something really escaped? Do you really have a mysterious ally of whom they are unaware? You smile, content with having broken their certainties. Meyer takes in the situation, his face consumed with seething anger. Sorry, how many points do I have? 69. Ha ha ha. Sorry. Couldn't help it. Ha 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 ha. Anyway, you fools. Can you not see that he's trying to plant seeds of doubt in you? Huntington, a lie will not be enough to save you now. Really, all he has to use against us is his quick wit. But he has nothing else to use against He has nothing else to use against us. Are you turning against us yet again? How dare you, after accepting money from us to pursue your research to eradicate diseases, such as that which killed your wife. Meyer laughs, then replaces his mask. But don't worry, none of that matters now. It is time. Two men drag you into the center of the chamber, right to the edge of the pool. Your legs give way momentarily. There is something inside, something seriously malevolent. You feel its vibrations. You can hear its silent calling inside your body. While the two men push you ever closer to the water, Meyer turns to his companions, and the chanting begins to rise to a crescendo. Then you spot the comet reflected in a small circle living liquid in front of you. You muster all your remaining strength and swing your arms back in a jerking motion. The motion contained enough momentum to unbalance the two cultists holding you. You waste no time and knee one of them in the face before he has a chance to stand up. Many others are upon you now. They grab and push you violently towards the pool. The comet is now completely filling the disc. Then Meyer approaches and turns your head to his face. You're face to face with the eerie smile of the ritual mask. Goodbye, Mr. Huntington. Meyer pushes your head into the water. You're unable to breathe. The water rapidly fills your mouth, throat, and lungs. You can feel it suffocating you organ by organ, as if the water were a sentient entity moving inside you. Looking for something, you can see the flare of the comet underwater, and you become aware of the immense and powerful energy swirling slowly around the pool. A violent ripple begins to form on the surface of the pool. You can feel the water inside your body vibrating too, screaming. It is moving like a living being. You cannot breathe. The comet is passing out of you in the reflection of the surface of the pool. The living water is still trying to force its way into your body to choke you. Then it suddenly retreats as if suddenly yanked away. Five. Okay, so observation or agility. I need 135 for 2 agility. I don't think we'll be getting there. You cough violently, gulping for oxygen. Around you, there's only high-pitched vibrating and buzzing. The men and women of the cult are taken aback, stunned, watching the water disappear down into the pool, writhing like a living entity being hauled backwards. The water is literally dragged downwards. For moments, though, it seems to try and resist, like some kind of snarled animal trying to escape its fate. It seems to be trying to cling to the edge of the pool, and even to you. Meyer steps back and glares at you from behind his stone mask. How is it possible? You have beaten the disease. You have beaten Histlick. You take full advantage of his astonishment, and thanks to a surge of anger, you find the strength to get a hold on him and pull him towards you. To his surprise, he has no time to react. He loses his balance and tumbles headlong into the now emptied pool. His shout resounds for some time before ending abruptly with a faint sound of crunching bones as his body hits the bottom of the pit. For a moment, your mind is filled with vivid images. It is Histlick desperately trying to hold onto you in some way, but he is failing. You hear his voice resounding inside your skull. Although it is impossible for you to understand the exact meaning of his cries, the gist of it is clear to you. The god is screaming furious curses with all his dwindling might. Your union with Hydra has accomplished its purpose. Your contact with the goddess has cured you of Histlick's infection. Finally freed from all traces of his dark contamination, you have lost the role of the catalyst to the ritual and broken the delicate alchemical balance which would have made it effective. Rather than being released, Histlick has been banished back to the depths of the ocean, perhaps for perpetuity. A loud outcrop of rock cleaves off and comes crashing down onto the temple floor, and is followed by more smaller boulders. Without Histlick's power, the temple is weakening. You see some of the cultists head towards a precise point in the shadows, an opening. It has to be the only way out, that hellish narrow tunnel from whence you entered this nightmare realm. Nothing else remains around the ruins. There is chaos, shouts, collapsing rock, and panic-stricken cultists running in every direction. You aim for the direction of the tunnel, and not only to escape, you remember thinking that such an entrance made access to the temple extremely difficult, but now you realize that this excellent defense could now be turned against them. It could in fact be an important opportunity to trap them all in the collapsing temple. As you progress, you feel your strength returning, and any last traces of disease fall away, as happened to Histolic a moment ago. Yet the only presence of the disease and its attendant hallucination can explain what you now see before you. You see the faces carved in the walls, moving their mouths as if speaking, as the rock of which they are made crumbles and collapses. As you see them scurrying, the cultists no longer appear human. They seem to have strange appendages growing out of their bodies and extending their limbs. With every second that passes, they become more and more like the creatures from your dream journey. While trying to stay away from the nasty creatures and find a way out, you catch sight of an odd bright light, leading towards a tunnel, a sort of shining beam. Follow the trail of light. You decide to follow the strange, luminous trail. Picking up your pace, you soon realize that this path allows you to move faster, helping you avoid both rockfalls and running cultists. It could, however, merely be another hallucination. In front of you, in the corridor, there is a space, a niche. This could well be the opening to the tunnel which leads to the beach. You sneak inside. Since this is the only way out of this underground temple, it might be the perfect opportunity to permanently destroy the cult of Histolic. Suddenly you realize that the streak of light does not follow the path of the tunnel, but rises and stops at a precise point on the wall. Looking carefully, you notice that the rock seems softer here. If it collapsed here, it would surely block any possibility of escape for all those left behind. Strike the spot indicated by the trail of light. You attempt to strike that particular spot as hard as you can. There is a faint cracking noise in the rock. Looking up, you realize that the stones are being held up by a bulge in the rock. Perhaps it will not be possible to create a collapse after all. Deciding to have faith in your hallucination, you lean back against the opposite wall and get ready to kick it. With one very hard kick, you manage a slight movement of the stone and a slight movement of the rocks and a small shower of stones. Then you hear voices. The cultists are escaping towards you. You continue kicking decisively, once, twice. At the third, the crack in the rock yields and many boulders fall, blocking off most of the tunnel and completely blocking the exit. Beyond the crashing rocks, you can hear the anguished cries of the cultists, realizing that their attempts to escape are now futile. You move rapidly away from the collapse of the dark and through the tunnel. After a few meters, you come across a small group of cultists who had already entered the tunnel before you. The noise of the crash must have stopped them in their tracks. When they recognize you, however, their anger takes over and they prepare to attack. You see that just by them, there is a rock protuberance that you could use as a step to jump past them. I don't know if this is going to work. Fighting can't work for me. There's a rock protuberance that you could use as a step to jump past them. I knew it. In desperation, you muster all your remaining strength. Sorry, I'm gonna need a drink of water here. In desperation, you muster all your remaining energy and use the protuberance as a foothold to leap over the man. Alas, your movements and coordinations are imprecise and you collide with the first of the cultists. I should have just charged. I don't know why I keep trying the agility. Only once or twice, literally twice I think, I've actually succeeded. Otherwise, not so much. Your collision sends him straight to the ground, but you two fall painfully against the rock. The cultists start getting to his feet. You can hear the others gathering behind you. They pounce on you and slam your body violently against a rock wall. Their gleaming eyes betray their rage and desire for revenge. One look back towards the tunnel, as if expecting more survivors, when suddenly something like thunder shakes the earth. The temple of the Histolic has finally collapsed. One of the men kicks you viciously in the head, then runs off with the others. You struggle to get up, but your body is racked with numbing pain. You start having difficulty breathing and your vision clouds over. You have been deceived, manipulated from the start, a mere puppet in the hands of occultists and divine beings. On the other hand, most of the cult members died under the rock when the temple of Histolic collapsed. Some of them managed to escape, however, and they may then spread the disease. You would like to believe otherwise, but you suspect that the survivors may try to take revenge by releasing another horrible pestilence. You smile at the bitter constellation. You will not live to see the effects of such hypothetical, violent revenge. It is hard enough for you to even think of tomorrow. Nyarlathotep, Yidra, Azathoth. Histolic is not the only threat after all, and there are probably other cults too, one for each of these unmentionable entities. As your breathing becomes more and more labored, you feel your life slowly slipping away. Watching the tail of the comet fading from the sky, you wonder who will be next to try and overpower humanity, to take possession over the world, which you, Jake Huntington, were able to save, at least at this time at least. Epilogue. Memorial of a Hero. Reginald? Nope, nothing about Reginald. Jake Huntington is a name known to a very small number of people. There's no trace of him in history, yet the world mourns the countless victims of a terrible plague who became known as Spanish flu. Here rests a good friend, and he's an eldritch truth. Death is only a shadow across the path to heaven. Although it is true that Jake Huntington's efforts and studies certainly prevented far worse consequences than might have happened in, for example, war, yet some of the cultists must have managed to escape before the collapse of the temple. It is not known whether it was an act of revenge or of war, but the Zanzibar disease was modified. Other strains were developed, studied, and then released into the world. The cult of Histolic was likely defeated, but the consequences were still disastrous. Millions upon millions of death. Furthermore, in addition to learning of their existence and the disease, Jake made other more disturbing discoveries, encountering beings such as Nyarlathotep and Yidra. Beings with unpronounceable names waiting in the darkness, ready to seize and take possession of the world and its inhabitants. Who, for example, is this Azathoth, served by both of these gods, albeit in very different ways? Jake Huntington would never know, but it is likely that someone else will one day encounter one of these terrible and frightening ancestral beings. And when that happens, whether they are able to face up to them in triumph, or whether they will succumb, as has happened to the good doctor, only destiny will decide. The end. Oh my god, finally reached it. Okay, so that was Omen Exitio Plague. There's a number of points where I thought, okay, I guess this is the end. No, it's not. Okay, I guess this is the end. I forgot that because I was using like the like the how long, I can't remember the website's name suddenly. It was like how long to beat the game type of stuff. It said around 6 hours, but I didn't take into consideration because I'm reading this out loud, it would take longer. So that there's that. Okay, so I know there's side stories, so I think, I don't know, we'll wait for these credits to roll, but in the meantime, I do want to figure out how many side stories are there, just so I have an idea of like how many more sets. Because I think at some point it's going to take at least have a little bit of a break, or there's going to be a break in terms of videos on the channel, just because my timing's off of things. I need time to like record videos at least a week ahead and stuff like that. But yeah, okay, I don't know. It's a Lovecraftian story where our character is either losing their sanity and completely out their depths. They are just being pulled along. They are puppets on the string. They have no control. I'm so upset about the. I don't know why I keep trying the agility thing, even though I know it's not going to work out for me. Oh, the cultist symbol at the end. You've unlocked the choice history and fast forward features that allow you to discover Omen Exitio Plague's unexplored routes. Retrace your steps and write a new story. I'm curious, where does this take us? If I press continue, where does that take us? I'm just curious. Okay, so it just goes right back to the beginning. Interesting. Okay. But I don't care. Menu. That's not what I'm here for. Let's look at the side stories. Okay, so it's just one side story. What is happening here? Okay, so the side story is weird. It says side stories, but there's just one. Okay. So we're going to be doing... Side stories. I'm trying to think. I don't know how long this side story is going to be. So, tomorrow... Yeah, just one. Side stories plural, but there's just one. I'm assuming there was... when was this game released? I'm assuming there's plans to like release more. Maybe as a DLC. I'll have to check back to see whether or not it's a DLC or not. That may be it. But I think, yeah, I'll be back tomorrow, or maybe not tomorrow. And on Monday. But depending on how long this side story is, it could be more than one set again. Interestingly. But yeah, either way, it could be the one side story. I'm gonna have to check the Steam page. But nonetheless, this is the end of the set for today. So thank you for liking if you liked. Thank you for commenting if you commented. Thank you for subscribing if you subscribed. Thank you for favoriting if you favorited. Thank you for simply clicking on this video. Until next time, guys. See ya!